Hello again. This is Marvin Kelly, and I'm a member of the PVS Pioneer Valley Symphony Board, and I'm here representing the board, and I'm going to be talking to Mandy Haneke from her role as in the front line as being a member of the Town Council in Amherst. Mandy, would you kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you're doing?
On the town council, yeah. So I'm obviously Mandy. I am a town councilor. I served for 2 years as vice president of the town council. I am a councilor at large. I'm no longer the vice president, but I chair one committee. I serve on another committee as town councilor. And we, as the council, it's a new form of government. We are the legislative body in town.
Okay. And I failed to mention, but I should. Mandy's the principal violist
Yes.
in the orchestra, has been on the board and served as president of the board for 3 years. So that's a little more background in terms of why we're here talking to Mandy. What do you miss most about the pre-pandemic experience?
I miss the in-person meetings,
Yeah, okay.
the informal interactions. When you're on Zoom, in a remote meeting, when the meeting gavels, everyone leaves. There's no extra conversation afterward with anyone who came to the meeting or with your fellow counselors or with a staff member to just ask a question. None of that beforehand. None of the running into people in the street and just having those informal conversations. And that is the thing I personally, as a counselor, miss the
Sure.
most.
Have you learned anything in terms of your experience with the council while we've been with this pandemic that would apply to us when we return to hopefully a normal way of life? Any changes that you've had to make in terms of your work?
We made a lot of changes,
Yeah.
not just as a council, but as a town.
Yep.
As a council, as an elected body, we have to meet in public. That is part of our role. We don't make any decisions behind the door. Everything is out in public, out and open. And the change to pandemic life was a vast change, because no longer were we meeting in a room with people in a room. We were all in our own homes. Every meeting was still in public, but over a computer, which is a very different change that we had to get used to. One of the benefits of that has been the engagement of our residents. In order to speak at a public meeting during the public comment period, people had to show up to the meeting, had to leave their homes, had to show up to the room, had to be there at the right time. And if it ran late, they had to sit through hours and all. And now they can log onto the computer. They can sort of have it in the background and go, oh, public comment's on, let me pay attention, let me raise my hand, and then go back to their life immediately. And so it's really been one of the things I hope we continue. The town itself had to figure out how to accommodate our unhoused population in a time where shelters and all are not socially distanced, and we had to figure out all of that, and that goes credit to our staff. We had to figure out, right now our staff is helping seniors schedule vaccines, something they've never had to do before.
Right.
And they've had to innovate and figure out ways to do that. We have used some of the federal money and relief money to help our businesses so that they will be able to survive this 1.5 years of COVID and come back with storefronts that are not empty in town. For everyone, the pandemic really forced us to change and innovate in ways that many companies, many governments, many entities have been saying we can't do. And we found a way to do that, right? Remote meetings were not as possible. Online engagement for town. We've figured out a number of ways to engage people in projects where we would have normally had a public forum where people show up in a room and talk about that project. We found ways to do that online now that I hope we can continue doing out of the pandemic. And those things, I think, are something that every company has had to deal with and learn.
Very good.
As we move
Very
out.
interesting. Well, again, thank you so much, Mandy.
Oh, thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
your taking the time and
Yes, my pleasure.
talking with us.